have still more coming from our audience. So I'd like to start with the one question that everybody asks an author who's written a book, and that's, what inspired you to write your book, and why now?
Right. I have to do this disclaimer because I'm an actor, and this book is an effort by so many different people. All my life, and I'll get back to this part of the story. It's okay that I talk to you and you at the same time. Forgive me if you ask questions.
Talk to them.
I've used my celebrity I learned kind of early on during the Cheers years that people would stick mics in your mouth and think that you have something wise to say or interesting to say. So I figured as long as all this attention was coming my way, which is a little bit like having a room full of adults focus on the 5-year-old, all that energy can spin you out very quickly, do silly things and behave silly. So I thought, great, I'll take all of this energy and I will focus it on something I care about. And I'll tell you how I got to Oceans, but this book is similar. This is me, Ted the actor, working with Mike Dorso, who's a wonderful author who's co-writing this, working with Rodale and my amazing editor, Colin Dickerman, and Oceana, the staff of Oceana. So many people got together to make this book possible. So the reason for this book, why now, is because it's a critical time for Oceans. People are becoming more and more aware of what the problems are. They're starting to hear about it. For the longest time, it was out of sight, out of mind. So it felt like a good time to start focusing on Oceans, because the problems we face, which I'll talk about, are fixable. But the clock is ticking. So my job, our job, is to let you know, here's the science, this is the facts, this is what's going on. Here are some of the things that can be done about it, here's some of the things you can do about it. But time is now. So it was a timely, decision. And I'm really glad I did it. To be exposed to the publishing world without my ego being on the table was really exciting for me. So I really enjoyed this, and I really want to say thank you for letting me talk to all of you. Speakers usually try to identify themselves with you, so my only claim to fame to be able to do that is that my mom was the class librarian when I was in the 4th grade. So,
well, your passion goes back to an incident that occurred in your early childhood.
Can I just say one more thing? Whenever I walk into a library, it was to write a paper for college, so truly, you all could drive me to complete unconsciousness just being around so many people who, when I would walk into your habitat, I would just go to sleep out of the fear and pressure of writing something. So I won't put you to sleep if you don't go to sleep. Anyway,
so tell us about your childhood experience. You had an early experience that really, I think perhaps maybe your passion started way back then. Tell us what happened, and tell us about that early experience.
Okay, I know what you're referring to, but it really, I used to say it when I go around talking about Oceans and what's going on, kind of as a joke, although it's true, but I know what you're referencing. Well, let me start at the beginning. My father was an archaeologist and a director of a museum and a research center in Flagstaff, Arizona. And my mother was a very church-going, later in life, I feel, very spiritual lady, and that kind of combination set, I think, me in this direction of science and spirituality. But we would go from Arizona. My father's museum was in Flagstaff, Arizona. We would drive from Arizona to this area, which is San Clemente, Laguna, La Jolla, Del Mar, and we would rent with my grandparents a little house, and we would spend 3 weeks all together as a family in this area. And it's when we were the most happy, because we were all at the beach. And about 7, I woke up one night with a fever dream. I had a high fever, and I woke up screaming, ran into my parents' room, bent over, holding my belly, just screaming, terrified. Took me to the bathroom, turned the lights on, splashed water on my face. As soon as water hit my face, I was like, oh, okay. Went back to sleep. But this happened, this fever dream happened about 3 or 4 nights in a row, and then lasted for almost 9 months. Every month or so I'd have another. And they finally asked me, what is this dream you're having? And I literally said this, and I'd forgotten about it until about 4 or 5 years ago. I said, I'm sitting on a beach, and God's voice says, Ted, you have 1 hour to empty the ocean into this bucket, and then handed me a spoon with holes in it. And I swear to God, that was a dream, literally. So my joke is that clearly it's your Messiah complex-like dream that's common to us actor types. But you'd have to say that I was at least concerned about oceans for a very long time. But that's not my, that's not the real story. I think it was, I played with my Hopi friends. It was a museum that was dedicated to natural history and the Hopi, Navajo, Zuni, Pueblo Indians in the Four Corners area. And I just played like mad. I was just into fantasy land. I literally got to play cowboys and Indians with my cowboy and Indian friends. It was astounding. My real horses. We'd get confused when we go watch a John Wayne movie, but other than that, we had the time of our life. So nothing kind of registered. But my father was a scientist, and my mother was a very spiritual lady. That's a shortcut, but very spiritual lady. And I say that again because I think if you're going to go about trying to preserve the oceans, the vitality of the oceans, you need to lead with science. Because if you don't lead with science, you end up doing more harm than good with your good intentions. And if you don't realize that this is also a spiritual conversation, then I think you won't succeed either, because taking care of our oceans is something that we all have to do as a planet. We all have to do it. If this country cleans up its act perfectly and the country next to it doesn't, so what? We literally are all in this together. We literally all have to rise to that higher place in ourselves to realize that we're going to need to share, we're going to need to not think that might makes right, and we're going to have to come from a pretty high spiritual place to solve some of these problems. The good news is these problems are solvable, but you are going to have to turn to that higher place in yourself as a species, I think. So it's a great conversation to have. That's why I bring up my parents. I can ramble forever, so point me in the right direction.
Well, I'm going to point you in the right direction because I'm going to go back to the 1969 oil spill that occurred in Santa Barbara. And I know that it had a profound impact on really the entire California area of the West Coast, and people became aware of how much damage that type of situation could do to the environment. And of course, it seemed like as if every 10 years we were having another memorable incident, most recently Deepwater Horizon. But I wondered if you could talk with us about your response to that particular event, which is now some time in the past, and how it got you involved in the American Oceans Campaign.
Great. Actually, when that happened, I was still in my basic unconscious state of my life. It didn't literally have an impact on me, except in hindsight, I realized it did. But that oil spill in Santa Barbara was the first time this country saw pictures of oil-soaked beaches and birds, and it so horrified the country that it literally gave birth to the environmental movement. All the laws that were made in the early 70s came out of, and it came from a bipartisan place, both Republican and Democrats, almost as one to start the environmental movement. started the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. All of that stuff came out, basically, out of that spill. I moved, so flash forward from Flagstaff, Arizona, to moving to Los Angeles, being an actor. It was about the second or third year of Cheers. They were paying me silly amounts of money, and I think that delighted and scared me. You know, how do I be responsible about that? I moved into a neighborhood near the beach in Santa Monica, and two things happened. I went for a walk with my two daughters, Kate and Alexis, back then. I hesitate over Alexis because she changed her name at age 10 to Katrina. You know, age 10, no longer Alexis and Katrina. And thank God, because she's great. But I was walking with my then daughter Alexis and Kate along the beach, and we were going to go swimming, and we bumped into literally a sign that said beach closed, water polluted. And when you try to tell your 4-year-old and your 8-year-old why that huge, vast, beautiful, gorgeous thing could have a problem, I had no idea, and it started to kind of work on me. Then weeks, months later, I went to a meeting in the neighborhood, led by somebody who became one of my great friends, Robert Sullivan, who was an environmental lawyer, who was the president at the time of No Oil Inc., which was a Palisades group in that area of Los Angeles. It was trying to fight against Occidental Petroleum from digging 60 oil wells right along the beach there in Santa Monica. They were going to slant drill into the bay. And it was literally right on the beach. You know, there's the beach, there's the road, there were going to be the oil wells. And we discovered a way to fight them and to win. And we liked each other's company so much that we naively thought, wow, let's keep doing this. We like each other's relationship, we like the topic. We'll start an organization. I mean, it's that naive. Cheers is paying me so much money. Here, you know, it was all very naive. But luckily, I also had, and we started American Oceans Campaign. But I also, my brother-in-law, Lauren Howery, who's a marine biologist here at Scripps, and he invited us down, and we talked to them and met with scientists. And we became this very small, 12, 15 staffed environmental organization. Senator, then Congresswoman Barbara Boxer, then Senator Al Gore, a lot of different congressmen on both sides of the aisle were very supportive because there wasn't a lot of energy on oceans back then. So off we went. We had offices in Washington and Santa Monica, and I became the spokesperson and was surrounded by really bright people, which is a really good thing for a celebrity to do. Because if you tend to get lazy or want to quit or frustrated, you have this organization around you that stops you from going anywhere. And Hollywood supported us. You know, we could raise the money to do the work, and it's what I did when I didn't act. And then about 10 years ago, I was truthfully looking for an exit plan, and I was tired of asking my friends for money. They were tired of me asking them for money, and it felt like a real transition. And at that same moment, the Pew Foundation and other European foundations got together, realizing that they needed to create an environmental marine organization that was international. So we merged with them. I'm now on the board of directors of Oceana. When I'm not acting, I go out talking about what's happening to our oceans. Every time I go out and talk, the scientists, we have some of the best scientists in the world on the staff of Oceana, they tutor me for like a couple of days or a week. And over the last 25 years of me doing this, I'm by no means an expert, but I have grown to know a lot about what's happening with our oceans. My job is still the same, to stand up and go, thank you for watching Cheers. You know, let me talk about my career for 2 seconds, and this amazing scientist next to me wants to tell you something about oceans. That's basically my function. And that's basically the spirit of this book. I'm standing next to some amazingly bright, wonderful, dedicated people around the world who do this every day, an amazing writer, an amazing editor, and I'm Ted Danson, and I can take all the credit. Not really. So it's me, you know, it's me using Cheers and my life as an actor to help get this information out into the world. So I really appreciate this opportunity, and I will now tell you what's going on, if you want, with our oceans, but that's kind of my story. And because I do bump rightfully into a lot of, why is Sam alone? It was about fish. Why should we listen to him? Good question. You know, don't listen to the scientist I'm standing next to.